The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding. Those are the opening words of the Kybalion, a book said to distill the 7 hermetic principles that governed every mystery school of the ancient world. But what if those words were never meant as poetry, but as warning? Throughout history, wisdom has rarely vanished. It has been hidden, encoded in architecture, cloaked in rituals, and protected by brotherhoods that understood one dangerous truth: that knowledge of how consciousness shapes reality is the real source of power. From the Knights Templar to the Rosicrucians, from the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn to the Freemasons, the pattern repeats. A group arises, claiming to preserve ancient wisdom. It grows in secrecy. It influences art, politics, religion, and science. And eventually, it vanishes into myth, replaced by whispers of control, conspiracy, and mystery. Most people dismiss these groups as relics of history or theories of paranoia. But what if their real secret was never political? What if it was spiritual technology? What if they were the last inheritors of a science that could explain not just how the universe works, but how the human mind directs it? Freemasonry, perhaps the most famous of all, embodies this paradox. On the surface, it's a fraternity of builders and thinkers. Its symbols decorate city halls, dollar bills, and even the cornerstones of nations. But at its core, it carries a lineage much older than medieval stonemasonry. A lineage traced through Egypt, through Hermes Trismegistus, through the geometry of the stars themselves. To understand how the Freemasons rose to such silent power, you must first understand their design. Every Mason begins as an apprentice, one who learns discipline and silence. He progresses to fellowcraft, one who studies structure and number. And then to Master Mason, one who is taught the sacred art of raising the dead, symbolically understood as awakening the dormant consciousness within man. Beyond these 3 degrees lie the higher rites, Scottish, York, and the 33rd degree, known as the Sublime Prince of the Royal Secret. These levels are rarely reached, and even less often understood, because the true initiation is not into an organization, it is into awareness itself. Throughout history, many of humanity's most influential figures, presidents, composers, inventors, philosophers, were Masons. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Mozart, Winston Churchill, Mark Twain, Henry Ford. They claimed to serve God and humanity, yet they also carried within them a hidden compass, the hermetic map of how mind becomes matter. That compass is not physical. It points inward, to the place where the outer and inner worlds meet the still point of consciousness, where thought collapses into form. Secret societies have always understood something modern culture has forgotten. Power does not come from control of others. It comes from control of perception, because perception shapes reality. Those who master perception can shape nations, art, and the future itself. So, what was the secret they guarded? What was the invisible doctrine passed down from temples of Egypt to the lodges of London, from alchemists to mystics, from Hermes to Hall? It wasn't magic in the theatrical sense. It was the mechanics of consciousness, the formula of creation itself, hidden in allegory, encrypted in geometry, disguised as architecture. And though the symbols have changed, the all-seeing eye, the compass and square, the unfinished pyramid, the essence has not. It all comes down to 4 timeless laws, the same laws taught to initiates once they proved themselves worthy of understanding. Laws that describe not what the universe contains, but what the universe is. In the next part, we'll peel back the layers of Freemasonry itself, its outer rituals and inner revelations, and uncover how this ancient fraternity became the bridge between Hermetic wisdom and modern manifestation. because to know what the Masons knew is to remember what humanity forgot. Reality is not solid, it's symbolic. And whoever decodes the symbols commands the world. Freemasonry presents itself as a brotherhood of builders, architects of stone, character, and civilization. But the deeper initiates understood something profound. Every cathedral, every pyramid, every compass and square was never about construction. It was about creation. Because the true temple isn't built from marble, it's built from mind. Every brick is a belief, every column a thought, every arch an intention. And the blueprint comes from the Hermetic law, as above, so below, as within, so without. This is the law of correspondence, the backbone of all mystical science. It declares that the macrocosm and the microcosm are reflections of the same pattern. The universe is a fractal, and consciousness is its architect. Whatever is impressed upon the inner world must express in the outer one. That's why Masonic lodges are filled with symbols. The square and compass represent the dual forces of creation, the divine and the human, spirit and matter, idea and form. The letter G, placed in the center of the Masonic emblem, stands for geometry and God, because to them they were one and the same, sacred order in motion. But beyond the symbols lies something more ancient, the Hermetic lineage itself. The Freemasons didn't invent this knowledge. They inherited it. Their roots reach back to Hermes Trismegistus, the mythic sage said to have taught the Egyptians how to awaken divine mind through geometry and sound. Hermes became Thoth. Thoth became Mercury. Mercury became the archetype of the enlightened messenger. His teachings were distilled into 7 principles: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. Together, these form the invisible mechanics of existence, the very laws by which consciousness becomes creation. And though modern culture relegates these to occult philosophy, every Freemason hall, every sacred text, every scientific discovery echoes them. For example, quantum physics now confirms the Hermetic principle of mentalism, that reality is not objective, but responsive to observation. Vibration has become frequency. Polarity has become duality. Rhythm has become wave theory. Science has simply renamed the sacred. When the Grand Lodge of England was formed in 1717, Freemasonry became the first global network of initiates, using Hermetic architecture as a symbolic language. Through it, the ancient knowledge traveled silently across continents, encoded in art, government, and institutions. Many of the founders of modern democracies were Freemasons, and whether they knew it or not, they were channeling Hermetic design into social order. The layout of Washington, D.C., for example, mirrors sacred geometry, the same proportions used in the Great Pyramid and the Parthenon. The Great Seal of the United States bears the all-seeing eye above an unfinished pyramid, a direct Hermetic metaphor. Consciousness overseeing the evolving structure of matter. But here's the deeper revelation. Most Masons never knew what these symbols meant. They memorized rituals, but never decoded the archetypes. They guarded temples, but never entered their own. Because true initiation doesn't happen through degrees, it happens through awareness. That's why, as 33rd degree Mason Manly P. Hall wrote, the great truths of Masonry are veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. They were never meant to be literal. They were meant to trigger remembrance in the few whose consciousness had matured enough to see through the veil. Manly P. Hall became one of the few who broke that silence. In the secret teachings of all ages, he revealed that Masonry's hidden purpose was to preserve the art of reality creation, the ability to manifest through alignment of thought, emotion, and vibration. He called it the royal art, not the art of ruling others, but the art of ruling oneself, the mastery of consciousness. Because, in truth, the Freemasons didn't seek to control the world. They sought to mirror it. They understood that the outer world is simply a reflection of the inner builder's mind. If humanity forgets how to build inwardly, it will decay outwardly. That's why initiation begins in darkness. The apprentice enters the lodge blindfolded, not as punishment, but as symbolism. You cannot see the world clearly until you first see yourself. Once the blindfold is removed, the initiate is no longer a servant of illusion. He becomes a builder of light. And that's what these societies protected. Not political power, but the power of perception. The truth that consciousness creates, not merely observes. But here's the secret they never told the masses. You don't need a lodge to become initiated. You don't need degrees or oaths. You only need to understand the 4 laws they lived by. The real inner doctrine behind every ritual, symbol, and compass line. These are not secrets anymore. They are principles of universal operation, available to anyone. Ready to remember? The 4 laws of reality. Creation, hidden in Hermetic texts. Whispered through Masonic halls. Now ready to be revealed again, not as superstition, but as science of the soul. In the next part, we'll open these 4 gates: awareness, clarity, creation, and balance, the same laws that have guided mystics, magicians, and masters for centuries. Because these are not just teachings, they are tools, and once you use them, you'll no longer live by fate. You'll live by design. Every secret society, every initiatory path, every mystical lineage, no matter its outer form, points toward one truth. Reality is mind in motion. Everything else, ritual, symbol, degree, or doctrine, exists to train the mind to become still enough,
clear enough,
and powerful enough to shape matter through consciousness. The true initiates were not priests or politicians. They were engineers of awareness. To master that art, they lived by 4 universal laws, the blueprint of creation itself. These are the same principles Hermes taught, the same truths Manly P. Hall encoded, the same mechanisms by which the initiated elite have always created their worlds. They're not secret because they're hidden. They're secret because they can only be understood through experience. So let's enter the chamber. The 4 laws of reality creation. Law 1. The law of awareness. The first gate of power is not thought, it's awareness. Every Hermetic text begins with one axiom: the all is mind. Consciousness precedes creation. Everything you experience, every event, person, emotion, is a projection of your state of consciousness. That's why awareness is the highest form of intelligence. To observe without judgment is to return to the 0 point, the stillness from which all realities emerge. Most people never reach this state because they are hypnotized by their own thoughts. They identify with the noise in their head, mistaking mental chatter for truth. But thoughts are not consciousness. They are contents of consciousness. The observer behind them is the true self. In Masonic allegory, this is symbolized by the eye and the triangle, consciousness observing the lower worlds. The initiate learns to watch the watcher, to see thought as energy passing through awareness. From that still point, he becomes the architect, not the architecture. In that awareness, you realize you are not the character in the story. You are the screen on which the story appears. And from that screen, you can project anything. The law of awareness says, power begins when identification ends. When you step back into pure observation, you step back into source, and source creates effortlessly. Law 2. The law of clarity. You cannot manifest what you are unclear about. Confusion creates interference in the field. The universe cannot deliver a signal it cannot read. Clarity is not just knowing what you want, it's knowing why you want it and who you must become to receive it. The formula is simple. WHAT plus WHY plus who equals how plus when. That's the architect's equation. In Masonic initiation, the builder always starts with a blueprint, a symbol of mental clarity. You must design your inner temple before laying the first stone. Clarity is not control, it's coherence. When your intention, emotion, and self-concept align, the quantum field recognizes you as a stable frequency, and stable frequencies attract their match. Without clarity, desire becomes noise. With clarity, desire becomes code. The Freemasons called this squaring the stone, refining the raw material of thought into the perfect cube of precision. In practice, it means defining your vision in vivid detail, understanding its emotional purpose, and aligning your behavior with the identity that belongs to that reality. Clarity is confidence, and confidence is creative magnetism. Law 3. The law of creation, once awareness and clarity align, creation begins. And it unfolds across 3 planes: spiritual, mental, and physical. The Hermetic axiom says, as above, so below. As below, so above. This means creation is a mirrored process. What happens in the invisible will echo in the visible. The spiritual plane is intention, connection with source. The mental plane is imagination, the act of forming the blueprint. The physical plane is embodiment, action that grounds vibration into form. When these 3 are aligned, manifestation becomes natural, not forced. Visualization is the mental upload, your image transmitted to the field. Meditation is the spiritual download, the feedback loop through which the universe communicates the path. Action is the physical anchoring, the final act of faith that bridges worlds. Freemasons expressed this in the architecture of the temple itself. Every building represented body, mind, and spirit. Every pillar stood for an aspect of creation, one for mercy, one for strength, one for harmony. You are that temple. And when your inner pillars align, your reality stands firm. Creation doesn't begin with action, it begins with coherence. Action without alignment is effort. Action with alignment is magic. Law 4. The law of balance. This is the law that few ever master because it asks for paradox. It asks you to act with full intention and yet release all attachment to the result.
Okay.
The universe is a system of balance. Excess effort creates resistance. Over-attachment creates energetic blockage. Only equilibrium allows energy to flow freely. The law of balance is the synthesis of 2 forces, effort and surrender. Effort sets creation in motion. Surrender allows it to complete itself. When you obsess over outcomes, you signal to the field that you lack trust, and lack collapses frequency. When you release the need, you open the channel for the result to arrive in its divine timing. The ancient symbol of this balance was the compass and the square, heaven and earth in harmony. Masculine will and feminine surrender in perfect union. The Masons called this the equilibrium of opposites. The yogis called it union. Science calls it homeostasis. Different words, same truth. Balance says, I work for the goal, but I do not need the goal, because need is resistance. And creation flows where resistance ends. This is how you merge divine will with human will by allowing them to dance. These 4 laws, awareness, clarity, creation, balance, are the true degrees of initiation. Every ritual, every temple, every ancient book is an external reminder of this internal process. The outer symbols were never the goal. They were mirrors, showing the initiate how to build within. Those who mastered these 4 laws no longer live reactively. They don't wait for reality to change, they become the change. They live consciously, deliberately, and creatively, knowing that life itself is a sacred architecture of thought and vibration. That was the secret the elites held. Not control over others, but understanding of the laws that control reality. Because those who know the laws use them, and those who don't are used by them. But these laws were never meant to belong to a few. They were meant to awaken the many, and the age of secrecy is ending. In the final part, we'll close the circle. The return of the initiate, where the viewer realizes that initiation was never about joining a group, but about remembering the truth. You are the builder. The lodge is your mind. The temple is your life. The path of the initiate has always ended where it began, within. Every temple, every symbol, every oath was a mirror leading back to one truth. The greatest secret is not hidden in vaults or hierarchies, but in the consciousness of the human being. You are the builder the Masons spoke of. You are the alchemist Hermes wrote about. You are the eye in the triangle, quietly watching the worlds you create. The difference between the initiate and the ordinary person is not privilege, it's perception. The initiate remembers. They remember that thoughts are architecture, emotions are frequency, and belief is blueprint. They remember that the Temple of Solomon is not a place in history. It's the construction of a coherent soul. Stone by stone, idea by idea, moment by moment. The temple is built in silence and lit from within. Every time you practice awareness, you carve the foundation. Every time you clarify your vision, you raise a pillar. Every time you align thought, emotion, and action, you install the sacred geometry of creation itself. And every time you balance effort with surrender, you crown the temple with light. This is the real initiation, not one given by any society, but one earned through conscious living. It is not about power over the world, it's about partnership with the field that builds it. Because the universe is not something happening to you, it's something happening through you. The Hermetic Masters called this the Great Work. The work of turning lead into gold, not physical metal, but the transformation of ignorance into awareness of fear, into wisdom of limitation, into light. That process was the true alchemy, hidden within Masonic and Rosicrucian philosophy. Manly P. Hall wrote, "When the student is ready, the mysteries open before him. For the mysteries are not a place, they are a perception. You are that student. Then tonight, the mysteries have opened before you." The Freemasons built cathedrals of stone. Now you build cathedrals of consciousness. Their lodges were dimly lit rooms. Your lodge is the infinite expanse of your own mind. Their rituals required secrecy. Your initiation requires sincerity, because this knowledge is no longer forbidden, it is simply forgotten. And the age we are living in is not the age of secrets, it's the age of remembering. You were never meant to bow to symbols. You were meant to decode them. You were never meant to fear the power of these teachings. You were meant to embody them. You were never meant to worship the builders. You were meant to realize you are one of them. So the question now becomes, what will you build? What kind of world will rise from the blueprint of your consciousness? What kind of energy will you broadcast into the collective temple we call Earth? Because the 4 laws you've just learned are not abstract. They are the mechanics of manifestation, the same principles that shape society, art, and destiny. Every thought is a stone. Every belief is mortar. Every action is a beam of light carving structure from the unseen. The great secret societies protected these truths because they knew the world was not ready to handle them consciously. But you are. Humanity is. the time for silence is over. Because now, instead of a few mastering the laws and controlling the many are awakening to master themselves. That is the true revolution, not political, not religious, but vibrational. The liberation of consciousness. And that is why you found this video. It isn't an accident. It's initiation disguised as coincidence. Your higher self brought you here to remember the architecture of reality. So as this transmission ends, remember the 4 laws. Awareness, the silent power behind all thought. Clarity, the precision that directs the current. Creation, the union of thought, feeling, and action. Balance, the surrender that completes the circuit. Live them, embody them. And your life will transform from reaction to design. Because those who know the laws create reality. Those who do not are controlled by it. And today, you crossed the threshold between the two. Welcome home, initiate. The temple was never outside you. It was waiting within you all along. Closing transmission. CTA, if this message ignited something in you, that subtle remembrance that you've known this truth all along, then let it ripple outward. Like this video, if it resonated. Comment below. What realization struck you most deeply? Your words will activate others who are ready to remember. And if you haven't already, subscribe and step deeper into this circle of awakening. This digital lodge where science meets spirit and ancient knowledge meets the new age of consciousness. Our next transmission, the Hermetic Blueprint. How to use the 7 universal principles to recreate your life, will take you even further from understanding to mastery. Because wisdom is no longer closed to the few. It's open to the aware. And tonight, awareness has found you.